Let's go out to Boston now and catch up with our friend Joe McDonald from The Athletic. Boston gets a big boost tonight. Sean Kuraly expected to be in the lineup. What are they saying about getting him back on the ice?
Keith, this is a huge boost for the Boston Bruins here in Game 5 tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the biggest thing is when you think about one player coming back into lineup, you don't think that it's going to make that much of an impact. But when you have a certain type of player like Sean Kuraly, it makes a huge difference. He's going to start on the left side with Noel Acciari in the middle and Chris Wagner on the right. And that fourth line, and I hate using that term fourth line, it's more of an energy line. And when that energy line is playing at its best, the rest of the team feeds off of that energy. And there's a reason why Bruce Cassidy, midway through the season, probably January, early February, there was a string of games where he started that line every single period of every single game for a certain string. And listen, there's a reason for that. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if Bruce Cassidy starts that line tonight against the Tavares line just to get that early spark. And the thing about Sean Kuraly is that he's one of the fastest skaters on the ice. He's one of the best forecheckers on the ice. And basically, he becomes that one-man cycle. He has the ability on the forecheck to gain control of the puck, keep it on his stick for a long time, and even though they might not turn it into a scoring chance, the biggest thing is he wears out defenders, and that's a huge deal, especially on home ice, because later in a game, especially late in a game, when a line like Patrice Bergeron's comes out, then maybe those defenders are a little more tired trying to track down a guy like Sean Kuraly. So you really can't understate at all the impact that Sean Kuraly's presence is going to have on the lineup for the Boston Bruins in Game 5.
Joe, I love it. It's the energy line. Speaking of energy, crucial. The Charlies, Coyle, McAvoy, how good have they been?
Without a doubt, Keith, these two guys, Charlie, he's the forward now, and now Chuck, he's a defenseman, the way they call him here in Boston. But both Charlies have been outstanding here for the Boston Bruins. When Charlie Coyle was acquired at the trade deadline, this is what they envisioned. They envisioned a third-line center, a big 6'3", 220-pound forward, being able to dominate and elevate his game. And that's exactly what Charlie Coyle has been able to do. Without a doubt, he's been the most consistent player for the Bruins in this series, and you can only see his game elevating as the series progresses. He had scored a huge power play goal the other night. He was able to find time and space and was able to put it home. On the back end, you're talking about Charlie McAvoy. Without a doubt, Game 4 was his best game in a Bruins uniform. He dominated at both ends of the ice. He was jumping up into the play. He was getting back. He was setting up layers defensively with partners Zdeno Chara, which really helped him out as well. And Charlie McAvoy, without a doubt, was a monster in that game. And that's just a small little sample of what Bruins fans here in New England should expect from a guy like Charlie McAvoy for the rest of this postseason, no matter how long it lasts, and especially for the rest of his career, as long as he's here in Boston.
How about the line matching? There's been a bunch of it in the first 4 games. How has that kind of impacted this series?
Well, you think about it, this time of the year, Keith, when you have two top lines as talented as both Boston's and Toronto's, in this type of matchup, they kind of almost cancel each other out. So you have to focus on the bottom 6 or third and fourth lines. And when everything is said and done in this series, that's probably going to be the big difference. But when you look at those top lines and you look at the job that John Tavares has done against Patrice Bergeron, I can't remember a matchup that has had this much success, consistent success, against Patrice Bergeron's line. They're going back and forth. It's a great matchup without a doubt. But in order to win this series, especially a game on home ice for the Boston Bruins, your best players need to be at their best. And in a game like here tonight at TD Garden, you expect Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and at least to start Dayton Heinen on the right side, because David Pasternak's down playing with David Krejci on the second line tonight. Expect that top line to produce the way that it did in Game 2 here of this series.
Joe, have fun tonight. Enjoy.
All right, Keith, thanks.
let's talk about Warren Foegele. So we had that, but we've also got some really good from him. What did you see on his first goal in that game?
It's a dynamic play. It really is. And what amazed me, it's really all about Jacob Slavin. He makes a fantastic play. I want to isolate on 74 ultimately in this one, but this is just seconds into the start of Carolina versus Washington. And Slavin makes a rather remarkable play. Here's our guy nearest to us, bottom right corner of your screen. Watch the read he makes right here. Puck battle turns over to him, and he thinks now in his mind, 1, 2, 3 guys, 3 caps are vulnerable, and a fourth, Niskanen, I could make vulnerable if I get on my horse and I get through neutral zone in a hurry. And what does he do? By virtue of having picked up the pace through neutral ice and making that great read, we've got a 3-on-1. Carolina is 3-on-1 just seconds into the game. What I like about this, to finish it all off, he never sells that he's going to Foegele on his backhand. He keeps Holtby on that near side post. He keeps Holtby in that track until the last possible second, and then bang! Right now, quick pass to Foegele. Dynamic play, but what an aggressive play by Slavin. I mean, to have that recognition and the confidence, Scotty, to make that play just seconds into the game, that's kind of a moment when we're feeling each other out. We're trying to get a feel for the pace of the game, but not these Carolina Hurricanes.
You're right, but that's excellent.
Gangbusters.
Great job on the video.
Gangbusters.
This is them setting a statement that we're not going to sit back because you guys are a high-octane team that you won a cup. We're playing our game. We're playing fast. We're going to score goals.
They're playing a little Roddy hockey right there.
That was a statement at the start of a hockey game that we're not sitting back. We're not afraid of you guys. Yeah. And that was a pretty impressive clip that you showed there, Steve.
Loved it.
"15 seconds, and there were things within things that happened." So I'm just going to be here. You guys tell me where you want me to go.
Should we go through the breakdown, the breakdown on tape, and kind of walk folks through that? Let's go
do
to
tape
that
first, then we'll show
Let's
us.
go to the tape. Let's break that down. I want to focus in on Braden Shen. He takes that important face-off late in the game for the St. Louis Blues, but there's something really peculiar that happens right here. Watch Shen rotate back, and right there, his skate kind of leaves the ice and rubs up against that kick plate at the bottom. It appears to me like he's lost his edge. Watch what happens. He'll test it here, and now the play is cycled back down deep. Notice the puck is in deep. Shen is now going to leave the ice, recognizing he's got a bad edge on the outside. What happens after that happens? Bozak comes into the mix. That's Jaden Schwartz. He goes into the pile. Watch at this moment, Bozak comes into the mix. He's come on the ice in place of Braden Shen. Bozak goes to that loose puck, corrals it, and immediately throws it as a right-handed shot, throws it into the interior. It's a hoper, Scotty. It's a prayer. It's off the ice, and Schwartz makes a fantastic play to knock it down. Love that Schwartz is able to pry it loose there on the wall. Steen's in the battle as well, no question about
Steen
it.
was huge.
But I love Bozak. Makes that play from the deep corner. Remember, he's the guy that's come off the ice. Braden Shen, oddly, is a left-handed shot. He's like me. So let's kind of map that out together. I want to illustrate for folks how this all kind of worked together. I'm Bozak. I'm in the deep corner. Remember, if I'm Braden Shen and I'm still on the ice, I'm a left-handed shot like me. I'm going into that deep corner. I'm probably not going to be able to make that pass to Scotty. It's not a natural motion for me to make.
Tougher on the backhand.
It really is. It's harder on the backhand. So I'm not likely to make that play. Oddly, though, Shen's gone off. Bozak's gone on. What's unique about Bozak? Bozak's not a lefty. Bozak's a righty.
Perfect.
Bozak comes into this battle, faces the same puck. What does he do? The natural motion for him is just, I'm going to throw that hoper into the middle and try to get it to my guy, Schwartz. Schwartz makes a magnificent play and knocks it down, probably 2.5 feet off the deck. I mean, lays down a little butt. It's really amazing. But it's just good luck. It's fortune. I wish I could give Craig Berube all kinds of, coaching kudos for facilitating, for manufacturing that change. But it's just good fortune. You got a righty at that moment in time, by really no perfect design, no premeditated design, and he makes that play.
Playing buzzard to buzzard. And that's what the Blues are doing. Let's be realistic. They didn't quit. It looks like Winnipeg wanted to get into overtime, freeze the puck. They didn't want to make plays, and St. Louis just kept coming after them. St. Louis wanted to win that game. They didn't want to go to overtime. They wanted to end it there and now. And they worked for the puck. And they outworked the Winnipeg Jets, and they made the play, and they got the goal with 15 seconds left. So outstanding job by the St. Louis Blues, cycling the puck and grinding it out and knowing how you win hockey games.
Austin Matthews, my goodness, the first 2 games of this series, nothing to show for his efforts. 8 shots on net. The shooting percentage was somewhere down around 2% or something. But the last 3 games, he's got 5 points, 4 goals in 3 straight games, and a big reason why the Leafs now have a 3-2 series lead. The knock on Austin Matthews, if there's ever a knock on Austin Matthews, was last year's playoff production. 2 points in those 7 games. Of course, Boston won that series, moving on to round number 2. Can't knock him anymore. He has produced so far in this series. What do you like about number 34?
He has produced, and quite frankly, I was surprised it took him as long to get going, I guess. It was just a game, but when you think about the addition of John Tavares to help take some of those matchups off of Austin Matthews' plate, I expected big things from him, and he's delivering in a big way right now. What a cool customer he is. I mean, talk about being chill. That was as chill as I've ever seen a guy after an enormous win for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Kind of ho-hum for Austin Matthews. I don't care how he does it. At the end of the day, he delivers. He delivered in the regular season, and now he's delivering again in the playoffs, like he did against the Washington Capitals a couple of years ago. Like his play, like the way he's hung in there. He hasn't been intimidated. He's still a young player in his career, and you have to remember that. Sometimes we forget.
Right, yeah, we put the cart way ahead of the horse sometimes with these youngsters.
Exactly.
He's got 9 goals in 18 career playoff games. That's not too shabby, half a goal a game.
And that's what people forget. Last year, he got stuffed. There was no doubt about it. The matchups weren't kind to him. This year, different story. This guy is proving he's a big-time player, and he's going to do it in his own way because it's going to be very chill.
If you're a goaltender, you want to be chill, definitely between the pipes. How about Freddie Anderson? 28 saves in the win. Tuukka Rask certainly stood on his head, but in the end, Freddie Anderson picking up the much-needed W in game number 5.
Yeah, he did. And Freddie Anderson kind of went through a tale of 2 seasons during the regular season this year, and here he is having a 3rd one where he's getting dialed back in to his game, because when he's on, he's as good as anybody in this league. He's a big goaltender. He moves seamlessly. He covers a lot of net. He's got a great feel, a good hockey IQ for what's going on out there around him. And we saw all those attributes in full use tonight. He had to be dialed in for them to win this game. Both teams had a few chances, as we heard from the players there. But Freddie Anderson, in the end, he bent, but he didn't break.
The Bruins' power play was good in the first 4 games of this series. They had a goal on the power play in the first 4, 2 for 2 on the power play in game 4, but 0 for 3 here in game number 5. What was the difference you saw in game 5 versus maybe the first 4 games of this series?
No more than Freddie Anderson. He made the saves when he had to. He was locked in and loaded when he had to be. That was the best opportunities the Bruins had all game. It is a strength of their club. It didn't come through tonight. It's going to have to come through for them in Game 6 if they're going to want to continue with this series, because the Toronto Maple Leafs are playing much better than we saw them down the stretch 5-on-5. They're playing much better, in particular, in their own zone. They're mirroring, to some degree, what the Boston Bruins are so good at, and that is that structure around the house. Toronto has looked excellent so far. They don't look like the team that was maybe just a little bit bored for that last quarter of the season.
All right, it's game 5, so pivotal, as we know. When a series, a best-of-7 series, is tied 2 games apiece, the winner of game number 5 goes on to win the rest of the series 79% of the time. And, of course, game 6 coming up on Sunday, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Last year, actually the last 2 times these teams have faced off in the playoffs, it's gone 7. The Leafs will try and end it coming up on Sunday in game number 6. All right, this was something that we had heard a long time coming and kind of felt like we would see this coming at some point. Today we finally see it. Your reaction to this and the correct fit for Stevie Y back home in Detroit.
Yeah, I can't think of a better fit for Stevie Y, knowing Stevie the way I do. He's a class guy. He loved working for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, he replaced me when I was down there, and he did a fantastic job. You got to call it the way it is. He did have some advantages, of course, with Victor Hedman and Steven Stamkos being there, something he won't find in Detroit. But at the end of the day, they do have a lot of really good pieces in place. This is good. This is an attractive job right now. Ken Holland, a class act, has done a really nice job transitioning through a couple of tough years, not unlike we did in Tampa. Timing is everything in this business. Detroit is in a pretty good position right now.
All right, this was day one. Got to have the press conference. He shows up to work on day number 2. What's his to-do list look like?
Well, there's a lot of work to be done, and we heard Steve mention that a number of times today because he's been through it. He knows it, he realizes it, he recognizes it. The first thing he's going to want to do, well, think good to great for all you business book geeks out there. You got to get the right people on the bus. He's going to go through an organizational review, not only with the players, but also with the existing staffs that is there. Steve is a guy that's very thorough. He's got time. He's going to take time where he can, but he wants to make sure in the immediate term that he's got people that can handle the draft the way he wants, people that can handle all the CBA-related issues that he's going to face, and also more than anything, he's going to eventually get to the validation of his coaches, who he was very positive on Jeff Blashill today, as he should be.
All right, number 1 was organizational review. How about the next one? Structure. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, when you say organizational structure, you're going to want to take a look at how information flows throughout the Detroit Red Wings. One job that Steve Yzerman did really well with Tampa is he had things organized where information flowed freely. It's not so much about bureaucracy. I think Steve likes to run, whether he knows it or not, he likes to run a very flat organization. That's going to promote communication. It's important for him to be in charge. We heard him say that. He likes it. He's a good delegator. He's going to want to make sure that the organizational structure is exactly how he likes it or how he wants it.
All right, validate the culture. What does that mean? What's he looking for?
Well, Steve certainly can recognize a great culture, having been a player in it with a team that had a great culture, and obviously having gone through the process and helping to create one in Tampa, one in which we saw, quite frankly, things that you don't really see on a lot of other teams. Players taking less money, players wanting to come there and play there. Steve is going to want to bring Detroit back to those days. And right now, it's pretty fair to say that it's not necessarily a top destination for free agents, but in time, with Steve's credibility, with his stern leadership, with his good communication skills, he's going to get that organization into a position where eventually you're going to want to see veteran players go to Detroit because they know they're going to be treated well. They already know it's great ownership. That's a carry forward, obviously, with the Ilitch family. But they know that it's a place that they can enhance their careers. And if you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, that's what the Detroit Red Wings had going on. When you go through the time, or a time like they have the last few years where they've had to transition, I really feel for a guy like Kenny Holland. I think he's done an excellent job. Those are tough times for an organization, but I think he's done really well. He's led that group really strongly. And I'm sure he's as pleased as I am to see him staying on with this organization for the long term.
When you take over the reins as a GM, you want your people in place or you want the right people in place.
Yeah.
And what's he do with the coaching staff right now? Jeff Blashill, of course, getting that extension not too long ago. When you come in as a GM and you don't have much wiggle room there, how do you assess what's going on behind the bench?
Well, if he watches our show here, then he's going to move forward with Jeff. And he said as much today. He's going to really just have to take some time to get to know him because Steve was very forward in his press conference that he knows Jeff to say hello. He had a brief conversation with him today, but he hasn't really dug into the man who Jeff Blashill is. He doesn't really know Dan Bilesma probably as well as he'd like to and the rest of that coaching staff. He's going to spend some time doing that. And whenever you have time in this business, you should use it. The coaches aren't going to really be into full effect, at least until the summer development camp. He's got plenty of time to get to work to build those bridges, to create relationships where he has a real comfort level with what everybody's doing. Because at the end of the day, Jameson, that's what's important. As you know, Jeff Blashill is treating the players the way that you believe they should be treated.
And when he dives into what he has on the ice, what's he going to find there as far as this youthful core moving forward?
He's going to find a really good core, quite frankly, and he's going to find an organization that's positioned well for the future. The toughest parts or the toughest times for the Detroit Red Wings coming off of nearly a quarter century of incredible success have already been done. They're already moved through it, in my opinion. They're past it. They hit rock bottom. Now they're on their way back up. Now with Steve Yzerman in the fold, adding that credibility, I think it's going to act as a tremendous accelerator. Yes, I think this is a very good decision for them, but at the same time, I recognize, it's a tough decision for Ken Holland, a guy that's really poured his heart and soul into the Detroit Red Wings, a guy that has already stated he's going to be committed to continue to help. But Stevie Yzerman is going to be the benefactor, in my opinion, of an organization that's been run really well for a long time. And now it's on its way back up. It went through the tough times.
How many years until the Wings are back in the playoffs, in your opinion? 1, 2, 3 more?
Realistically, I think that Steve's going to take his time. That's his MO. Like I said earlier, he's a good delegator, but I don't think he's going to try to force things. I think he's going to try to build something very much like he did with the Lightning that's built to last. The Tampa Bay Lightning should be a good team for a long time. I think that's going to be his goal with Detroit. I think that's going to cause him to be not cautious, but he's not going to run out and do anything crazy. I don't think you're going to see him try to sign the top free agents. I don't think you're necessarily going to see potentially a top free agent, if he gets there, like Erik Karlsson, signing in Detroit. I think Steve's going to focus on the group that they have there, putting the right process in place and figuring out how we move this thing forward so we can get back to those glory days that Detroit knows so well.
Oh, this is a step in the right direction because that guy was part of those glory days, and now he's running the ship. Speaking of things looking good, how's your bracket looking right now? Because there's a lot of people out there with the Bolts in the East and the Flames now in the West. Gonzo, their bracket is just throw it in the shredder because you take a look at this, and it's the first time in the expansion era, you got to go back to 1967-68 lots, that the top two regular season teams by points eliminated in the opening round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Who saw this coming?
Nobody did, and we know what happened with the Lightning. Obviously, a couple of key injuries, suspensions, things went sideways, and great play. And let me say that again, great play from the Columbus Blue Jackets. All of a sudden, they were dispatched. Not a lot of excuses for Calgary in this one. The one Achilles heel we thought they might have in the playoffs was goaltending. And
Mike Smith was good.
Mike Smith played tonight. Wasn't obviously a great game for him by the numbers, but in terms of how he played every night, he played excellent. He was not the reason why they were shut down. The fact of the matter is that the Avalanche's 99-point player, Nathan MacKinnon, outscored the Flames' 99-point player in Johnny Gaudreau by 7 points in this series.
Yeah, just 1 point in the 5 games so far. And then you got a guy like James Neal, who they were kind of counting on all season long. And here you are in your, your season against the ropes, so to speak, and he's a healthy scratch in this one.
Yeah, the James Neal experiment has not worked out well for them for whatever reason. He just never really got his feet under himself this year with Calgary. He's got a lot of term, makes a lot of money in Calgary. I'm sure they'll revisit how they're going to fix that in the future. Johnny Gaudreau, on the other hand, he was just stymied in this playoff, could never really get anything going. And when he did, like tonight, he had absolutely no luck whatsoever. Here's a breakaway right here. And, oh, by the way, this is his third breakaway in this period. One of them was a penalty shot. He tried to go backhand a couple times, got shut out. This is a little bit of a rarity here in that you don't normally see a guy be that clear for a breakaway. And yet, how did that shift end for Johnny Gaudreau? After the breakaway, it ended with a minus. Finally, in the next period, he gets something going. He banks one in off of Grubauer. And wouldn't you know it, the goal is going to get called back, Jameson, for goalie interference.
It's kind of the series in a little
bit in a nutshell,
yeah,
right
exactly.
there.
That's exactly what I was trying to say there. But what I can say is the Colorado Avalanche, the first team out west, moving on. They wrap up this series 4-1. The big guys get it done. Look at the production they got. The big three combining for 7 points in the 5-1 win here in game number 5. We heard Nate MacKinnon after talking about, yeah, the big guys have to step up. But you know what, hockey? It's a team effort, and that was a total team effort after that opening game. 4-0 loss, but after that, it was an avalanche, so to speak.
It truly was an avalanche. You could say the Flames got torched, to say the least.
Bringing it.
That's all we could say, but honestly, after the first game in which the Avs got shut out 4-0, complete dominance. They outscored Calgary 17-7 in the next 4 games. Yes, there was a couple of overtime, 3-2 close games in there. But the reality is when the Avs needed to bring it, they just had another gear. There was no answer in Calgary for McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog. Tyson Barrie played amazing in this series, proved that he is the offensive guy you know he is, but he also proved that he can defend. He played tremendous for me, and then you have to tip your cap to Colin Wilson as well tonight.
Collective effort, that's for sure. But McKinnon called Rantanen an animal. How would you categorize the top three guys? Because at one point in the season, we were saying these top three, they're the best line in hockey.
They were beasts. When you think about Mikko Rantanen, you're talking about a guy that's 6'4", 220 pounds. Nathan McKinnon, not so big, 6 feet. 205 pounds. Did I mention that?
He's a horse.
And how about Landeskog? He weighs in at about 215 pounds. He's only 6'1". There's a lot of beef there. These guys are tough to control.
What's this, Arby's? Where's the beef?
Where is the beef? It's all on that line. Not to mention Colin Wilson's a pretty thick kid himself, but it's not just beef. It's also speed.
Yeah.
It's power. It was dominance. This is a bit of a surprise, obviously. Not a lot of people were thinking that the Colorado Avalanche would be able to do this to a Calgary Flames team that finished second in the National Hockey League, 107 points. They had a remarkable season, but the Avs made it look easy in this round. They really did against them.
A good sign for the Avs and their fan base moving forward, because there were times during the season we were saying, does this team, yeah, they have the horses up front, those big three. Do they have enough depth? But how about in this deciding Game 5? Colin Wilson, as you mentioned, 3 points. Tyson Barrie, as you mentioned, 3 points. Do they have enough depth moving forward now at this point? Have they proven that?
As long as all their big guys are healthy, they have plenty of scoring to move forward. A lot of their depth guys, the Matt Nietos, the Jose, you can go up and down their lineup.
Cale Makar now?
Cale Makar now. A lot of these guys are making contributions in so many different ways that it just gives the Avalanche the appearance of a lot more depth than they probably really have. The fact of the matter is when your big line is going as good as theirs, you're just fine.
Yeah.
The Avalanche, to me, believe it or not, they're in like maybe the second inning in terms of their development. They have a long way to go, but they are really good already. This is going to be a great organization for years to come.
Clutch performance of the night presented by Bridgestone. It goes to the goaltender, Philip Grubauer. Maybe a forgetful Game 1 performance, but after that, he was stellar. How about 28 saves in the deciding Game 5 victory lots?
Let in 4 goals in that first game and then never let in 2 or more the rest of the series. He won the next 4. He played a career-high 37 games this year. He had a nice year for the Colorado Avalanche, but he played so well down to the stretch. He literally led them into the playoffs, and now he's really taken the bull by the horns and run with it. He was fantastic. They never would have won this series without him. The overtime winning game, you name it, he did everything he had to. .939 save percentage.
He got it done between the bites. Yep, and the big boys stepping up, the big three combining for 7 points in game number 5. Top team in the East, top team in the West. Bye-bye. We play on in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Who predicted that?
Exactly. We roll on NHL Tonight. We come back. Steve Yzerman heading back to familiar territory. We discuss the Wings' newest GM next.
I done been around the world, ain't nobody else that could do it like us with nobody help. When the chips about to fall and I'm back against the wall, know it's only one place I call. All roads lead home.
An original 6 chess match. Could this be the last game?
Welcome to my city.
Score! From way downtown.
They score! Austin Matthews!
They call on the ice stands. We have a good goal.
All roads lead home.
Welcome
to my city. Welcome to my
city. The Leafs have taken Game 5. Colorado Avalanche has done it. Round 2. Here they come.
All roads lead home.